Chapter 158. Knock, knock, knock. After some time someone knocked on the door and said loudly, "Lord Lin Yan, there will be a special mission in the afternoon. Please get up and get ready." Lin Muyu opened her eyes and looked out of the window. It was almost noon, so she got up and washed up in a hurry. A few unaffiliated warriors had already prepared an armor and a warhorse for him. After becoming a UE envoy, the standard seemed to have increased as well. He obtained a set of red armor which was extremely heavy when he wore it. Although the craftsmanship was exquisite, Lin Muyu still missed the gold star armor from the sanctum. After all, it was embedded with buoyancy gems and it was extremely light to wear. After lunch there was a sound of cannon in the village. The Grand UE envoy Jiang, UE envoy Li Qianxuan, and other important figures had appeared one by one. Almost all the rangers on the mountain had come out. There were more than 2,000 people and no one was left out. Their flags fluttered in the wind, covering the sky. It was a very shocking scene. Riding to Ji Yang's side, Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, "Lord, what mission are we going to carry out? Why are there so many people?" Ji Yang stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Lord Lin Yan, you don't have to ask. You will know when the time comes. As long as we complete this mission, I promise that Lord Lin Yan will at least get a captaincy." Captaincy? Lin Muyu frowned and didn't continue to ask. There were less than 10,000 people in the House of Chivalry. How could she become a captaincy? The group went down the mountain. Instead of taking the official road, they took a detour through the dragon forest. Ji Yang and the others seemed to be very familiar with the mountain roads. After traveling in the mountain for the whole afternoon, Lin Muyu didn't know where they were. However, he was vaguely uneasy. The two words that Ji Yang had said yesterday kept circling in his mind. Deer Song Garden and White Crane. What did they mean? Had the White Crane returned to the capital? As for Deer Cry Garden, what kind of place was that? At this time it was almost nightfall. Lin Muyu rode his horse to the back of the formation, responsible for bringing up the rear. There were a few silver exalted rangers following beside him as if they were protecting him, but also as if they were monitoring him. Pa. In the night sky, a white figure descended rapidly, accompanied by the sound of flapping wings. Lin Muyu raised her head, and the white bird had already landed on her shoulder. It was Chu Yao's messenger bird, Little White. Lin Muyu looked left and right. A few silver elder rangers were chatting and did not seem to notice his movements. So he pulled down the letter tube on the leg of the messenger bird and took out a roll of paper. A line of Chu Yao's words was clearly written on it. "Where did you go? I haven't been in the imperial capital for a long time. Today brother went with the emperor to Deer Garden Palace to hunt. I miss you so much. When you see the letter, reply." It was Chu Yao. Lin Muyu's heart warmed, but when her gaze fell on the words, Deer Garden Palace, her heart suddenly trembled. Deer Garden, was there a palace there? If that was the case, then Ji Yang's target was Deer Garden Palace. To assassinate the emperor. In an instant Lin Muyu's heart was chilled. She finally understood why Ji Yang was so wary and what he meant by the White Crane. It must be that the White Crane would also participate in the assassination. Not good. If Chu Chu was not by the emperor's side, she was afraid that she would really be in danger. More importantly, Qin Yin would also go to Deer Garden Palace to hunt with Qin Jin. Then even she would be in danger. Even if Qin Lei, Feng Jixing and the others accompanied her to protect her, they were in the light while the House of Chivalry was in the dark. If they were attacked, perhaps Qin Yin could rely on her own strength to protect herself, but it was hard to say for Qin Jin. At the thought of this, Lin Muyu's heart was burning. She could not become an accomplice. She had to leave this place, but how could she leave? After thinking about it, she decided to go to the bathroom. This was a tried and tested trick. "I'm going to pee for a while, I'll be right back." He suddenly turned his horse around and said. A silver venerable level wanderer said, "Then shall I go with you, messenger you?" "No need, I can't pee with someone watching me." "Then all right, I'll wait here for Lord Messenger you." "No need, just follow the team. There are spiritual beasts roaming around here, no one can save you if they eat you." "All right." He rode into the depths of the forest and immediately pulled out the burning prairie sword. With the ostentatious sword light he wrote a reply to Chu Yao. "Sister Chu Yao, the House of Chivalry will assassinate His Majesty tonight in Deer Garden. Please think of a way to inform Qin Lei and Feng Jixing immediately. Please stay." Whoosh. Little White spread its wings and flew straight in the direction of Lanyan City. just in time to point out the direction for Lin Muyu. He immediately urged his horse to gallop in that direction. The warhorse kept snorting. The continuous galloping for a few days had exhausted a lot of its physical strength, but it was urgent now, so Lin Muyu kept urging the horse to move forward. 4 hours later, the warhorse finally fell to the ground with a whine, foaming at the mouth and unable to run anymore. Lin Muyu gritted his teeth and carried the burning prairie sword to activate the falling star steps. He galloped forward as if he was stepping on the stars. His speed was not much slower than the warhorse, but the consumption of his battle energy increased rapidly. Half an hour later, the outline of Lanyan City appeared in front of him after climbing over a hill. However, Lin Muyu did not have time to enter the imperial capital to ask for reinforcements. He went straight to the Eagle Nest camp, where he still had 110 elite soldiers at his disposal. He could not care so much, he just had to send as many people as he could. On the Eagle Nest Mountain, the lights flickered and many soldiers were gathering and drinking in the camp. When Lin Muyu appeared in a chess envoy's armor, a group of royal guards raised their longbows and shouted in a low voice, "Who are you? How dare you trespass on the Eagle Nest Mountain?" Lin Muyu slowly lifted the cloak that covered his head, revealing a determined face, and said, "I am Lin Muyu of the Royal Guards, let me in." "So it's Lord Lin Muyu, please wait a moment." The gates slowly opened, and when Lin Muyu stepped into the camp, Wei Chou and a group of royal guards had already come forward to welcome him, and said with a smile, "Lord, you're finally back." Lin Muyu was anxious and said, "Prepare a horse for me and a set of royal guards' armor for me." Wei Chou, "Gather our troops and prepare to set off immediately." "Yes, Lord." Wei Chou was very loyal and did not even ask any questions and immediately went to carry out the task. At this moment, the commander of the Eagle Nest camp, Meng Fong, walked out of the central tent and said in a low voice, "Lin Muyu, without orders from your superiors, you are not allowed to mobilize the troops of the Eagle Nest camp." Lin Muyu's expression turned cold and she said, "Right now, a large group of people are heading to Deer Nest Garden to assassinate the emperor. If we set off now, we might still be able to make it in time." Meng Fong was stunned. What do you mean?" Lin Muyu raised her fist and said, "Those who are willing to come with me to rescue the emperor, come with me." Among the group of centurions, only Xiahou Sang held a long sword and said with a smile, "Lord Lin Muyu, I, Xiahou Sang, will go with you." Right. After changing into the white robes of the royal guards, there seemed to be about 300 people gathered. Lin Muyu mounted the horse and said in a low voice, "Wei Chou, lead the way to Deer Nest Garden." "Yes, Lord." The sound of hooves broke the silence of the night. More than 300 royal guards quickly descended the mountain and headed straight for Deer Nest Garden in the north of the city. Deer Nest Garden, a temporary imperial residence located at the edge of the dragon-seeking forest. It was also the usual hunting ground of the Emperor Qin Jin. Today he had once again arrived at Deer Nest Garden with Qin Yin, accompanied by more than 10 officials. The main hall of the temporary imperial residence was brightly lit, and the emperor and his officials were drinking merrily as though they would stay up all night long. Outside the main hall, Feng Jixing was dressed in a white robe, and his brows were tightly furrowed. His hand was on the handle of his wind cutter and he said to Luo Lai, "How's the defense going at night?" Luo Lai cupped his fists and said, "Don't worry, Lord. We've brought 5,000 imperial guards and 4,000 of them are stationed in the 4 directions of north, south, east and west. There are 12 camps and not even a bird will be able to fly in. Moreover, Commander Qin Lei is leading 50 dragon guards to protect His Majesty and Her Highness. Don't worry, nothing will happen." That's good. Feng Jixing felt a little uneasy and said, "I keep feeling that something is not right. Is Lord Chu Chu not back yet?" Luo Lai smiled slightly. "The herbs at the bottom of the Black Mountain have completely mesmerized Lord Chu Chu. I feel that if we don't harvest all the herbs there, I'm afraid that Lord Chu Chu will not return. Moreover, Deer Nest Garden is so heavily guarded that it doesn't matter if Lord Chu Chu returns or not." Feng Jixing muttered, "That's good too. Let our brothers keep their spirits up. We cannot slack off at all tonight." "Yes, Lord." In the cold night of the dragon-seeking forest, a thunderous sound came from underground. With a bang, a huge and ferocious snake head rushed out of the ground. The scales on the snake's head were like blades, spiraling like knives. This was a type of earth-drilling dragon snake. There were 12 gold patterns and 3 silver patterns on its head. It was actually an earth-drilling dragon snake with a lifespan of 12,300 years. A few scales on its head had already peeled off, revealing the golden scales underneath. This dragon snake was undergoing a dragon transformation. Perhaps in another few hundred years, it would transform into a real dragon. At the neck of the dragon snake, an entire scale had flipped open and a piece protruded out. It was an old expert who had pierced his feet into the flesh of the dragon snake. His hair and beard were all white and his face had a hint of arrogance. He lightly tapped the neck of the dragon snake with his long staff and said, "Little treasure, continue passing through. Whether we can kill that incompetent and incapable ruler this time depends on you." Hiss hiss. The dragon snake raised its head and let out a long hiss with some anger and unwillingness. Under the moonlight, the old man's long hair fluttered in the wind. It was the pale crane. Whoosh. The dragon snake raised its head and once again burrowed into the ground. The scales around its skull spun like blades, turning the rocks and soil underground into dust. The pale crane lowered its head. It was as if its entire body was attached to the scales on the dragon snake's body, and it was not affected by the rocks. It held its breath and followed the dragon snake underground. At night, the white robes of the White Robe Imperial Forest fluttered in the wind. Qin Lei held a gourd in his hand. He opened it and drank a mouthful of wine. After warming his body, he said, "Strengthen the defenses." Beside him, Chu Huaying held his long sword and suddenly pricked up his ears in alarm. He said, "Commander, did you hear something?" "What sound?" Qin Lei was stunned. "It seems like a sound coming from underground." Chu Huaying's gaze turned cold. He confirmed the source of the sound and said, "It is indeed coming from underground. Something is coming, be careful." Chapter 159. Suddenly the sound stopped as if it had never been heard. Chu Huayin opened his eyes wide and stayed alert for nearly 5 minutes, but there was nothing. Qin Lei could not help but laugh. He patted Chu Huayin's shoulder and said, "Don't be so nervous, there was no sound at all." Chu Huayin frowned slightly. "Commander, my spiritual sense will never be wrong." "Then, increase the vigilance." "Yes." The cold moonlight sprinkled on the ground like frost. In the open space to the east of Deer Garden, bonfires swayed in the cold wind. This was the camp of the Imperial Guards, and there were about 1,000 Imperial Guards stationed there. The sound of horse hooves passed by, and 100 patrolling cavalry whizzed past the perimeter of the camp. Clatter. Amidst the clatter of the iron chains on his armor, Bailey stood up. The golden insignia on his collar was the military rank of the Imperial Chiliarch. He frowned as he looked into the distance and said, "Why do I feel that the tranquility tonight is a little unusual? There's not even a single spirit beast that came to cause trouble. This is too unusual." On the side, a centurion who was roasting wild rabbit meat grinned and said, "Sir, you must be too worried about the Emperor's safety this time. Don't worry, the Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards have mobilized more than 6,000 people, and they are all around the Imperial City. Which bastard would have the guts to make a move on us?" Bailey nodded. "Yes, although you are right, tell our brothers to keep their spirits up. Don't sleep too soundly tonight. Be ready for battle at any time." "Yes." At this time on the mountain range to the east of the camp, the light of torches appeared but quickly extinguished. It was the people of the House of Chivalry. More than 2,000 people appeared together on a hill that was about 100 meters high, using the night and the forest to hide their figures. Jiang pulled on the reins and urged the horse forward slowly. He said in a low voice, "We are about to enter the Forbidden Army's defensive perimeter. All Silver Exalted Rangers, get ready to move out. We will eliminate their 100-strong cavalry in half an hour. We cannot let them make any noise before we enter the Forbidden Army's camp. By the way, where's Lin Yan?" One of the supremacies cupped his fists and said, "Great Envoy Yue, Lin Yan said that he needed to pee, so he went to relieve himself. However, he didn't follow us. We haven't heard from him for nearly 2 hours. He disappeared." Ji Yang's expression turned cold as he said, "Bastard, you actually disappeared in such a situation?" Li Qinshuan sneered. "I knew that Lin Yan isn't on our side. He'll only be a scourge if we keep him in the headquarters. Big brother, why don't we call off today's operation? No. Jiang suddenly waved his hand and said calmly, we can't let go of such a rare opportunity. There won't be a next time. Besides, the Ashen Crane is here too. With his treasure, even if the fire cauldron Chu is in the camp, we will still force our way into Deer Cry Garden and bring out the head of the incapable ruler. Everyone be alert and prepare to attack. Yes. In the darkness of the night, the Forbidden Army's patrols were divided into 4 teams. Each team had 100 men. At this moment, 100 heavy cavalry entered the forest to patrol. They held torches in their hands and looked around cautiously. However, perhaps because the sound of the horses' hooves was too loud, they actually didn't notice the strange movements in the forest. Whoosh! An ice-cold arrow shot out from the darkness, piercing through the neck of a centurion with a poochie sound. Immediately afterwards, arrows rained down on him. Careful, there's an ambush. Sound the horn immediately. Someone shouted. An Imperial Army sergeant quickly took off the horn on his waist. Just as he brought it to his mouth, he saw a black shadow coming through the air, with a milky white combat aura. Bam! With a muffled sound, the Imperial Army sergeant's head was smashed. Then martial artists with extraordinary cultivation rushed out from the forest. They were Jin Zun, Silver Elder, and the others from the House of Chivalry. Most of the Imperial Army soldiers were ordinary people who hadn't even entered the human realm. How could they be a match for them? In the blink of an eye, they were all killed. Ji Yang's palms were already stained with blood. With a vicious look on his face, he looked into the distance and said, "Why hasn't the signal been sent out yet? What is the Ashen Crane doing?" Li Qianxuan said softly, "Wait a little longer. There will be." In the inner courtyard of Deer Cry Garden, Qin Lei, Chu Huayin, and the others were still guarding the outside of the main hall with their hands on the hilt of their swords. Suddenly, the rumbling sound from underground was heard again. Chu Huayin immediately pricked up his ears and shouted, "It's coming. Be careful underground." The group of dragon guards became solemn. Bam! With a loud sound, mud and rocks burst out from the ground. A ferocious head appeared in the inner courtyard. The moment the burrowing dragon snake emerged from the ground, it bit a dragon guard in its mouth. The dragon guard's face turned pale. He hurriedly circulated his vital qi to defend himself. He shouted in a low voice, and a blood-red scythe martial soul condensed in front of his chest. He shouted, "Break!" Buzz! The martial soul hummed, and the scythe spun rapidly to cut the burrowing dragon snake's huge mouth. However, it couldn't cut through the scales that were as tough as iron. The burrowing dragon snake growled and closed its jaws. With a poochie sound, the poor dragon guard was bitten into 2. Fresh blood flowed everywhere. At the same time, the ashen crane on the burrowing dragon snake's back leaped up. The pressure of its domain quickly descended upon them. It shouted, "Do you think you can stop me?" The metal staff descended from the sky and landed on Chu Huayin's head. Chu Huayin suddenly raised his head, but he couldn't move under the pressure of the sanctuary. He couldn't help but grit his teeth. Starlight flashed around his body and his battle energy exploded. Golden cicada shedding. Bam! The ashen crane's staff landed, but it only hit Chu Huayin's afterimage. Instead, he felt a chill behind him. With a chi sound, Chu Huayin had appeared behind him. The star-plucking finger landed heavily on the ashen crane's battle energy armor. Although it couldn't penetrate it, it made the ashen crane's aura a little chaotic. Qin Lei and the others broke free from the suppression of the domain pressure. The dragon guards quickly drew their swords and surrounded the ashen crane and the burrowing dragon snake. Roar, roar, roar. The burrowing dragon snake's body was as hard as iron. Furthermore, it was a 1,300-year-old burrowing dragon snake. As it roared, its body swept across the area, turning the buildings into dust. It whipped its tail and 2 dragon guards were whipped away as if they were flies. They were seriously injured in an instant. The dragon guard's counterattack was very weak. The arrows bounced off the burrowing dragon snake's scales, but they didn't cause any substantial damage. Violent lightning formation. Countless lightning bolts rained down around Qin Lei, and at the same time, 6 god-binding chains wrapped around his body. He raised the thunder splitter blade and dashed towards Songbai He. With a low roar, he slashed out 3 times. The reason why the god-binding chains was known as the number 1 martial soul was because of its powerful attack power. These 3 slashes all landed on Songbaihe's iron staff, and unexpectedly, the sacred domain expert's blood and qi became chaotic, and he was forced to take a few steps back. Damn it! Qinlei's eyes were cold. He shouted, "Send a signal to ask for help. Let the royal guards come in with acid water. The burrowing dragon snake scales are too powerful. We must use acid water to corrode them in order to penetrate them." As soon as he finished speaking, a xiao sound was heard. A red ray of light shot into the sky from the hands of a dragon guard. That was the signal of the royal guards. At the same time, the ashen crane raised his staff and a milky white battle energy shot into the sky. With a weng sound, a white ray of light shot into the sky. It seemed that he was also sending a signal to the outside. Not good, Chu Huayin held his sword and said, "Commander, they should have other surprise teams. What should we do?" "Don't worry. There's still Feng Jixing. Let's kill that old thing Ashen Crane first. We can't let him step into the main hall." "Yes." At this moment, the signals from both sides appeared one after another. It seemed that there was some kind of tacit understanding. The royal guards of the East Barracks were a little shocked. Chili Archbailey immediately stood up and mounted his horse with his sword. He said, "Something happened in the palace. First and Second Barracks, get on your horses and follow me to reinforce them. The rest of you stay here and guard the east gate of Deer Cry Garden." Yes. Everyone got on their horses. However, not long after Bailey left, the sound of horse hooves could be heard in the darkness. A group of chivalrous house wanderers rushed over like a tornado. They were led by Ji Yang, who had the strength of a heavenly king, and Li Qianxuan, who had the strength of a heavenly venerable. There were also many Jin Zun, silver venerable and bronze venerable wanderers. How could the few hundred royal guards resist them? Shield wall, bows and arrows. Giant shields formed an impenetrable wall, and spears poked out from the gaps of the shield wall. The imperial guards who stayed behind did not suffer any counterattacks. They pushed the line forward, and the spears pierced through the rogue swordsmen and venerables, killing them one by one. For a moment, the people of the House of Chivalry could not take it. This was the sharpness of an army's battle. Bows and arrows. Nearly 100 royal guards shot their arrows. The sharp arrows quickly fell into the crowd of people from the House of Chivalry and killed dozens of people. At this moment, a dignified voice sounded, "Move aside, let me do it." Jiang made his move. He leaped from the back of his horse and raised his right palm in midair. Blood-colored battle aura swirled around him. He roared, "What bullsh***** T royal guards of the Empire. Break." Boom. A giant blood-red palm smashed into the shield formation, instantly scattering the shields like a gale sweeping away fallen leaves. Ji Yang was the first to charge into the crowd of imperial guards. His palms danced wildly, each strike carrying a wave of battle qi. His attacks were ruthless, killing dozens of imperial guards in the blink of an eye. The imperial guards, on the other hand, couldn't hurt him. After all, the battle armor around him was too thick, and it was difficult for those without martial souls to penetrate it. In less than 5 minutes, the 600 imperial guards were completely crushed. More than half of them were dead, but the remaining were still holding onto their weapons and fighting bitterly. It was only because of the iron and blood rule that Feng Jixing gave them. The imperial guards would rather die than surrender. Jiang did not stay for long. He led his men and quickly broke through the imperial army's encampment and rode straight to Deer Cry Park. In the darkness of the night, nearly 2,000 members of the House of Chivalry approached the core of the Empire's soul, Emperor Qin Jin. Chapter 160. Buzz. The impact of the fierce battle between the sanctuary and the heaven state created waves of tremors that came from underground. For a moment, the officials gathered in the main hall could no longer sit still. One by one, they stood up to watch the battle in the inner courtyard. There, the roars of wild beasts and the roars of the royal guards could be heard, as well as the screams of people on the verge of death. Minister Luo Xing's face was a little shocked. "Your Majesty, the attacker is Songbaihe, an important guest of the Divine Marquis residence." Qin Jin frowned. The Divine Marquis residence again. The State General Ling Nantian cupped his fists and said, "Your Majesty, that old man Songbaihe is really shameless. He has received so many favors from the emperors in the past, and now he has come to assassinate your Majesty." I will go chop off his head and present it to your majesty. Qin Jin's heart sank. He knew that although Ling Nantian was good at leading troops, his own combat ability was far from Feng Jixing, Qin Lei and the others. He shook his head. No. General Ling is the state general. How can you fight with such a despicable person? Guards, where's Feng Jixing? Outside the main hall, Feng Jixing obeyed and entered. He cupped his fists. Your Majesty, I am here. What's the situation outside? Qin Jin frowned. Feng Jixing said briefly, Lord Qin Lei is leading the dragon guards to besiege Songbaihe. But Songbaihe has reared a dragon snake for more than 10,000 years, so the outcome is uncertain. In my opinion, why not let me cover your Majesty's retreat? The location of the main hall is too obvious. If Songbaihe breaks through the protection of the royal guards, the safety of your Majesty and the other officials will be in danger. Yes. Qin Jin nodded. Let's go to the West Court. Yes. King. Feng Jixing unsheathed his wind cutter and shouted, Imperial Guards camp, follow me to protect His Majesty and the ministers to the West Court. At the east gate of Deer Song Park, about 300 Imperial Guards were guarding. Fire broke out in all directions. They did not know where to go and could only stay where they were. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the cold night the sharp arrows came along with the wind. In the blink of an eye, dozens of Imperial Guards guarding the gate were killed. One of the generals hurriedly shouted, Defend with shield walls and use kerosene to block the way. The Imperial Guards on the city wall threw down the oil barrels one after another. Bang, bang, bang. The barrels exploded and the black beach oil splattered all over the ground. Following that, torches were thrown down. In the blink of an eye, the only path to the east gate of Deer Cry Garden had turned into a sea of fire. Serve me with your arrows. Arrows rained down from the city walls, injuring several bronze elder rangers who were charging at the front. Some of them were even shot to death. Ji Yang's face turned cold. He jumped off the horse and shouted, Li Qianxuan water separation technique. Yes, big brother. Li Qianxuan leaped forward and raised his palms. Immediately, streams of battle aura rapidly absorbed the water elements in the air. He abruptly pushed his palms forward and then slowly separated them. Immediately, the streams of water elements pushed the flames to the sides as if they had a mind of their own. This kind of fire extinguishing technique was truly amazing. However, Li Qianxuan, who was using the water separation technique, was not in a good condition either. His face was covered in sweat, and in the blink of an eye, his battle energy was almost overdrawn. Charge in! Ji Yang took the opportunity to mount his horse and charge forward with everyone. His battle armor blocked the dense rain of arrows, and he punched out with his fist, directly reducing the east gate of Deer Song Park to dust. This gate was made of wood, so it had no defensive power at all. Furthermore, Deer Song Park was originally a palace for the emperor to patrol. It was originally not designed to be used for defense, so naturally, it could not withstand a single blow. A group of rangers quickly rode their horses and followed Ji Yang into the garden. The 600 Imperial Guards could not stop them even if they wanted to. After all, the other party had a level 74 Heavenly King. Shiv! There was a sharp caw in the air and a black feathered crow landed on Li Qianxuan's shoulder. His eyes shone with a demonic light and he suddenly said, Big brother, Qin Jin has gone to the West Court. We'll pass through the Imperial Garden from here and catch them off guard. The moonlight was like water. The snow a few miles away from Deer Cry Park had not completely melted yet. Amidst the clattering of hooves, the iron hooves left black spots on the snow. The curved hooves left marks on the snow, like the waning moon treading on the snow. In the distance, flames shot into the sky, and they could already hear the battle cries coming from Deer Song Park. Wei Chou frowned and said, Are we already too late? It's not too late as long as we are here. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and pulled out the burning prairie sword. She said, The south gate is intact. Let's kill our way through the broken north gate. Full speed ahead. Yes. Over 300 Imperial Guards of the Eagle Nest camp rushed over and passed through the destroyed east gate. Lin Muyu looked at the broken gate and couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Who could have such a strong fist force? It was probably Ji Yang, wasn't it? Or the pale crane. In the west garden of Deer Song Park, there used to be a herd of tamed longhorn deer. At the moment there was a chaotic battle outside. Nearly 100 longhorn deer were stamping their hooves anxiously in the pen. Under the protection of a group of civil and military officials, Qin Jin sat in a side hall of Deer Cry Garden. He looked at the fire outside from afar and sighed. He blamed himself endlessly in his heart, yet he asked, "Where is Her Highness Yin?" "Her Highness Yin is bathing in the hot spring in the south garden." A servant said, "Send someone to find Her Highness Yin." "Yes." "No." Qin Jin raised his arm and said, "Feng Jixing, you will personally lead 200 elite imperial guards to the south garden to protect Her Highness Yin. You must ensure Xiao Yin's safety." Feng Jixing was stunned. "But Your Majesty, the west garden is already short of soldiers, and there is a group of strong soldiers from the House of Chivalry outside. I am worried that here." "Don't say any more. Go and protect Her Highness Yin." "Yes." Feng Jixing cupped his fists and led the crowd away with his wind cutter. Before he left, he said, "Once the traders from the House of Chivalry come in, immediately open the pen and let the longhorn deer rush out. Maybe they can delay them for a while. I will come back as soon as I find Her Highness Yin." "Yes." Luo Lai cupped his fists and nodded. Less than 5 minutes after Feng Jixing left, the wall of the west garden was suddenly blasted open with a boom. Gravel flew everywhere and the torches outside the wall were abnormally dense. At least 1,000 rangers were outside the wall, eyeing them covetously. Jiang was surrounded by his combat energy. He stepped on the broken rocks and entered the west garden with a faint smile on his face. The time to kill the incapable ruler has come. Rangers charge. The Imperial Army's 1,000-man commander Luo Lai immediately led a group of Imperial Army soldiers to welcome them. At the same time he opened the beast pen. Immediately, a herd of longhorn deers rushed out while howling, catching the rangers off guard. Many of them were stabbed by the longhorn deer's sharp horns, and some were even trampled to death. Kill. Jiang suddenly rushed forward with his combat energy in his palm. With a sudden blow, he blasted an Imperial guard into a pile of minced meat. His strength was so tyrannical that it left people speechless. A group of Jin Zun and Silver Venerable Rangers rushed in with their swords. The scene once again turned into a chaotic battle. "Protect Her Majesty! Protect Her Majesty!" The civil and military officials shouted loudly. But who could protect Qin Jin at this time? Ji Yang, Li Qianxuan and the other Heaven Realm experts launched their attacks, and the situation became completely one-sided. The 200 Imperial guards led by Luo Lai were killed one after another, and in the blink of an eye, there were only 50 people left and even Luo Lai himself was injured. One of his arms was fractured by Ji Yang, and his arm was hanging by his side, and he could not even hold his long sword steadily. Gritting his teeth, Luo Lai switched to his left hand to hold his sword. But he was not familiar with it and he was sent flying by Ji Yang with a palm strike. "General Luo Lai." Qin Jin gritted his teeth and shouted, "Stop fighting. You should not die like this. If the people from the House of Chivalry really want to kill me, then kill them. After I die, Qin Yin will be the ruler and the empire will not be destroyed." Jiang could not help but laugh. "Qin Jin, do you think your daughter can still live?" Rangers, kill them all. Leave no one alive. I'm going to change the empire's territory today." Just at this moment the wall at the side suddenly collapsed with a bang, creating a huge gap. A group of people wearing the armor of the Imperial Guard appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The person at the front was impressively a young general holding a flaming longsword. His white robes fluttered in the wind. Suddenly he opened his palm and let go of the longsword. A dense flame shrouded his palm and the long sword began to spin rapidly. Using fire to control the sword, Lin Muyu urged her horse forward with the long sword in her hand, and her target was Ji Yang. "Lin Yan, it's you." Ji Yang recognized Lin Muyu at a glance. He could not help but shout angrily, "You shameless villain, so you are also a lackey of the Emperor. Say what you want." Lin Muyu charged at Ji Yang with great momentum. She leaped from her horse and controlled the burning prairie sword with her palms, striking at Ji Yang with a mighty strike. Ji Yang had to fight Lin Muyu with all his strength. He put his palms together in front of his chest, and his vigorous battle chi condensed into a huge shield. He shouted in a low voice, "Ascending Void Shield." Boom! The dragon flame spiral strike collided with the ascending void shield, and the battle chi instantly erupted. The impact made the group of civil and military officials almost unable to open their eyes. The rapidly spiraling True Dragon Origin fire tore through the Ascending Void Shield's battle chi defense bit by bit. In fact, the Ascending Void Shield was an enhanced version of battle armor. The moment the Ascending Void Shield was torn apart, the power of the spiral strike was also exhausted. Ding! With a sword cry, the Burning Prairie sword was shaken and its power was exhausted. However, Lin Muyu raised her hand and grabbed the long sword in the air. She shouted, "Fire Dragon, come out." Battle chi poured into the blade and she directly launched a sword soul attack. The fire dragon roared and rushed out through the blade, directly hitting Ji Yang's chest. Ji Yang had already consumed more than 50% of his battle chi along the way. Just now he used the Ascending Void Shield to block Lin Muyu's spiral strike, and at least 20% of his strength was consumed. Now how could he block the sword soul attack of the Burning Prairie sword? There was a burning pain in his chest. What was worse, in Ji Yang's eyes he clearly saw Lin Muyu rushing over like a ghost, and her fist was surrounded by the familiar all-living stars. The arrogant dragon regrets. Ji Yang instantly felt regret in his heart. Moreover, this time Lin Muyu had already summoned the Green Gourd Martial Soul, and her strength was greatly increased. It was the third glory with 100% strength. "Protect the Great Wandering Chess Envoy." Li Qianxuan shouted and hurriedly stood in front of Ji Yang, her palms forming a shield. Bang! With a loud sound, Li Qianxuan and Lin Muyu were both celestial venerables, but they were not as strong as the Seven Glory Dark Force. Li Qianxuan was directly hit by the palm and blood spurted out of his mouth. To make matters worse, the power of the third glory went through Li Qianxuan's chest and directly hit Ji Yang's abdomen. After a few steps back, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of Ji Yang's mouth. "Charge over and kill Qin Jin or else no one will leave." Flames of madness burned in Ji Yang's eyes. Lin Muyu's aura was also surging. After using the third glory, her battle chi seemed to have been drained, and she needed a few seconds to recover. Standing in the distance, she said calmly, "Royal guards, protect His Majesty and the ministers." Yes. Wei Chou and the others all pulled out their swords, activated their martial souls and charged at the group of rangers. Chapter 161. The Eagle Guards. It's the Eagle Guards. The officials cheered. Lin Muyu's arrival gave them hope of survival. "Your Majesty." Lin Muyu did not participate in the battle. Instead she turned around and bowed to Qin Jin. "I came late. I should have sensed it earlier, but I could not see through Ji Yang and Li Qianxuan's thoughts. It is my fault that Deer Garden was attacked." Qin Jin shook his head with a smile. "No, you came at the right time. You have done a good job." Lin Muyu nodded and stood by Qin Jin's side to protect him. He did not make a move. When he approached Deer Cry Park, he had already used his spirit pulse technique to sense the aura fluctuations of the surrounding experts. Within the vicinity of Deer Cry Park, the white crane and the 12,300-year-old dragon serpent's aura were the strongest, followed by Ji Yang. Ji Yang's aura was getting weaker and weaker as the battle wore on, so Lin Muyu had chosen to fight Ji Yang the moment he entered Deer Cry Park. He had even used his strongest killing moves, the Dragon Flame Spiral Break and the Third Star, to cripple Ji Yang's battle strength in one round. The next few minutes were his time to recover. Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang and the rest of the Eagle Guards had always been the Imperial Guards outside the capital. They were only responsible for patrolling and gathering information. They did not usually have the chance to protect the Emperor. That was why the opportunity before them was so precious. They fought the Rangers with all their might. 300 of them fought to a draw against more than 1,000 Rangers. Not long after, more than 1,000 Imperial Guards guarding the west gate of Deer Cry Garden charged over. With a pincer attack from both sides, the House of Chivalry was instantly defeated. Silver Venerable, Bronze Venerable and Iron Venerable Wanderers died under the arrows. Even 2 Golden Venerable Wanderers were killed by Wei Qiu and Xiahou Sang. Ji Yang and Li Qianxuan fled, and the Imperial Guards did not pursue them. Instead they let the Imperial Guards pursue them. Lin Muyu. Qin Jin suddenly raised an eyebrow and said, "Xiao Yin is still in the southern court. I wonder how she's doing right now. Feng Jixing is bringing people over right now. You should hurry over as well. Perhaps you'll be able to help Feng Jixing." Lin Muyu stared blankly for a moment, but didn't say anything. She carried her sword and used the falling star steps to rush to the west court. Rumble. A violent rumbling sound came from underground. Feng Jixing looked at the movement under his feet and frowned. He said, "The dragon serpent has burrowed back into the ground. Where are Her Highness Yin's people?" "His Highness, you can stay in the side hall's hot spring. We'll stand guard here," said one of the Imperial Army's Kiliarchs. Feng Jixing narrowed his eyes and said, "I wonder how Qin Lei, Chu Huaying and the rest are doing in their battle against Song Baihe. Sai, they came so suddenly this time that we were simply caught off guard." The Chiliarch smiled. "Lord Commander, there's no need to blame yourself. We've all done our best." At this moment there was a sudden bang. The ground trembled and a huge black figure rushed out. It was the dragon serpent. It seemed to have received an order from Song Baihe. The dragon serpent came alone to look for Qin Yin. The moment its huge head emerged from the ground, it opened its mouth and bit 2 Imperial Army cavalrymen to death. Its head shook violently and tore them along with their horses into minced meat. Plang. Feng Jixing unsheathed his sword and shouted, "Bastard, attack with me and kill him." The dragon serpent seemed to be mocking them. It suddenly raised its head and a ball of fire appeared on its neck. It was about to attack with a dragon's breath. Feng Jixing was stunned and shouted, "Be careful to dodge." His martial soul was the purple electric flame wolf, which was focused on attacking. He didn't have a defensive skill like Lin Muyu's green gourd. He held his sword with both hands and suddenly spun it like the wind. With the support of his battle energy, it actually formed a huge light shield. He shouted, "Blade dance." Hua! Scorching flames spewed out and engulfed Feng Jixing's figure. At the same time, more than 10 Imperial Army soldiers around him were burned to ashes. The flames burned along the pavilion and in the blink of an eye, the side hall of the West Court was on fire. The moment the flames dissipated, Feng Jixing rushed out of the smoke. His face was full of traces of smoke and his eyes were filled with hatred. The wind-cutter sword turned into a cold light and went straight for the dragon serpent's neck. The first style of the wind blade, Desert Gale. Crack. The sword slashed on the scales and left a deep mark, but it didn't hurt the dragon serpent. On the contrary, the dragon serpent's head swayed rapidly, slamming heavily onto Feng Jixing's shoulder, sending him flying back along with his saber. A group of Imperial guards hurriedly went forward, but they were caught off guard by the dragon serpent's tail swiftly whipping past them. The group of Imperial guards were still standing there in a daze, but their bodies were already splattered with blood. Their upper bodies were all snapped and fell down, actually becoming 2 halves. The cruelty of the massacre was unbearable. The maidservants in the side hall were dumbfounded, and Feng Jixing still held his sword and stood together with the dragon serpent. Rustle, rustle. Amidst the rustling sounds, Qin Yin, who had just finished bathing, had already changed into a princess's armor. Her long hair was still wet, and she raised her hand to pick up the long sword beside her. She said to the maidservants, "You guys wait here. I'll go help Commander Feng Jixing." "No." One of the maidservants hurriedly knelt on the ground and said, "Your Highness is precious, how can you take such a risk?" This servant heard that the dragon serpent outside is a 10,000-year-old spirit beast. Even General Feng Jixing isn't its match. If anything happens to your Highness, we won't be able to bear the consequences of His Majesty's wrath. I hope that your Highness will reconsider. Weng weng. God-binding chains appeared around Qin Yin like guardian spirits, and the maidservants with no cultivation dared to say a word. The God-binding chains were the martial souls of kings, and they contained the majesty of an emperor. It wasn't something that mortals could look directly at. But the moment Qin Yin rushed out of the side hall with her sword, she saw the dragon serpent's tail swaying in the air and drilling into the ground together with its body. Battle chi swirled around the long sword in Feng Jixing's hand as he said angrily, "You killed so many of my men and you still want to leave?" With a leap, the courageous Imperial Army commander actually followed the dragon serpent into the cave. How can this be? The beautiful princess instantly felt guilty. She didn't have the courage to jump into the dark cave. She had been afraid of the dark since she was a child, and she didn't even blow out the light when she slept at night. A series of rumbling sounds came from underground, and the dragon serpent's tunnel caused the ground to tremble as if there was an earthquake. A few minutes later there was a sudden bang, and the dragon serpent appeared again. It was impressively in the side hall's hot spring pool. As the water splashed, the dragon serpent let out a roar and swallowed a maidservant. It chewed in big mouthfuls and fresh blood flowed to the ground. Bastard! Qian gritted her teeth and flew over. She didn't wait for the dragon serpent to get close and she directly raised her arm. Battle chi condensed in the distance and with a schwa, a golden light burst out, and the god-binding chains broke out from the ground and bombarded the dragon serpent's lower jaw. Immediately, a few large scales flew off, and one could faintly see the dragon serpent's scarlet blood dripping down. Feng Jixing grabbed the dragon serpent's tail, and he held it tightly with one hand while the other held the wind-cutter saber. He hacked at the dragon serpent's body and it looked very strange and comical. Hiss hiss! The dragon serpent's huge body twisted and it went straight for Qian. It opened its mouth and swallowed her. Qian hurriedly summoned the god-binding chains, and with all her might she summoned 6 god-binding chains in front of her chest. However, with a ping sound the dragon serpent still broke through them. The blood-red tongue spat out, and it directly wrapped around Qian's arm, pulling her towards its mouth. It's over. Qian's heart instantly turned to ashes. She waved her sword and slashed, but it was impossible to cut through the extremely tough tongue of the dragon serpent. Moreover, the dragon serpent's strength was frightening, and it dragged her towards its frightening bloody mouth. She couldn't help but close her eyes and tears filled her eyes. She didn't expect that she would still be buried in the dragon serpent's mouth after escaping from the dragon serpent's poison last time. Just when Qian was in despair she suddenly felt a warm feeling under her feet. With a rustling sound a green gourd vine soared into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it wrapped around Qian's body trying to pull her back. You, she hurriedly turned her head and saw Lin Muyu rushing over with the burning prairie sword. The gourd surrounded her and the burning prairie sword was piercingly cold. She brazenly slashed at the thick and long tongue of the dragon serpent. It still couldn't be cut. Even Qian's god-binding chains, known as the #1 offensive martial spirit, couldn't cut through the tongue. Naturally, Lin Muyu's 10th grade green gourd couldn't cut through it either. However, Lin Muyu was anxious and her eyes turned cold. She opened her mouth and bit the dragon serpent's tongue. Pooh! Its teeth were about to break, but it was strange that the tongue could withstand the attack of the god-binding chains, but it seemed to be unable to withstand Lin Muyu's sharp teeth. When it bit again, a fishy taste rushed into its throat. It had bitten through the tongue. Hiss hiss! The dragon serpent was in pain and hurriedly retracted its tongue. Meanwhile, Feng Jixing had already taken the opportunity to carry the wind cutter to the side of the dragon serpent. With a spin of the blade he shouted, "Hot sand gold!" After 3 consecutive slashes the dragon serpent flew back, but before it could feel proud, the dragon serpent's tail had already mysteriously whipped Feng Jixing's shoulder. With a cautious sound his left arm had already been broken. With a miserable groan he fell to a corner of the side hall and his face was deathly pale. "You Highnessine, be careful." "No, the dragon serpent is too fast," Qian said. Lin Muyu had already moved forward with her sword, and the wall of the gourd protected the front of Qian. As expected, the dragon serpent's devouring attack and whipping tail came one after another. With 3 consecutive bangs, the wall of the winter gourd was instantly shattered, and Lin Muyu felt a sweet taste in her throat as she crashed into the wall behind her. She was in a sorry state. Feng Jixing's broken left arm hung low, and with his right hand holding the blade he stood up again. His gaze landed on the dragon serpent's neck and suddenly his eyes lit up. He said, One of the scales on its back has been corroded. It must have been corroded by the Imperial Army's acid. I'll hold the dragon serpent back and you think of a way to pin it to the ground so that it can't dig or move again." Lin Muyu struggled to get up from the ground, and nodded with a disheveled expression. Not far away a group of Imperial Army soldiers stood there, but no one dared to go forward. A 10,000-year-old spiritual beast and 3 Heaven Realm elites. This was not a battle that belonged to them and if they went forward they would just be cannon fodder. Chapter 162. Streams of wind blades swirled around the wind slasher saber. When the dragon serpent opened its mouth to devour, Feng Jixing suddenly waved his saber and quickly created a hurricane. Instantly, this hurricane directly washed away half of the roof of the side hall. This was one of his famous ultimate moves, Berserk Saber Storm. Every point in the storm seemed to be mixed with the sharpness of an invincible blade. The violent wind swept the dragon snake's head, and in the blink of an eye, the scales on the dragon snake's head were swept away. But it still couldn't break through the armor. Bang! The dragon snake's heavy bite attack was neutralized by Feng Jixing's blade, and he himself vomited blood and fell into the corner of the jagged wall. However, it also seemed to confirm his promise to restrain Lin Muyu. Whoosh! Stepping on the starlight, Lin Muyu forcibly gathered the battle energy around her and used the falling star steps to jump onto the dragon snake's back. She quickly found the wound that Feng Jixing mentioned. However, when she was still a short distance away, the dragon snake had already raised its head and stared at her with a pair of emotionless eyes. I'll restrain it. On the ground, Qin Yin let out a soft cry. She suddenly raised her right hand and condensed her left hand into a finger. She lowered her head and muttered to herself. Her battle energy flowed rhythmically and the long sword hummed. The god-binding chains also began to vibrate rhythmically around her body. That's right, it was a rhythm similar to the sound of a zither. Just like her name, Qin Yin, this sound wave attack turned into a substantial force and went straight for the dragon snake's brain. Hua! An invisible attack directly penetrated the armor. The dragon snake was instantly stunned. It shook its head frantically and pounced on Qin Yin in the next moment. Bang! Qin Yin spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. She had also lost her sword. Her face was deathly pale and she had lost the ability to resist. Lin Muyu took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to leap up. She reached into her cosmos sack and grabbed the hard and cold spear handle. With a wung sound she pulled it out. A miraculous scene occurred. She pulled out a spear that was at least 2 meters long from the small cosmos sack. It was the pear blossom spear. She held the spear with both hands and thrust it into the corroded wound on the back of the dragon snake. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere. The spear had pierced a small part of its body, but there was still a large part outside. No matter what, the spear could not pierce through. It was as if there was some kind of defensive layer in the dragon snake's body. Gritting his teeth, he decided to go all out. Leaping up once again, he raised both his fists in the air. Around his fists, streams of celestial bodies condensed, and an incomparably violent strike went straight for the handle of the pear blossom spear. 3 luminaries calamity. Bang! It was a clean strike. The 3 luminaries' power was infused into the spear handle, and the pear blossom spear immediately pierced into the dragon snake's body. With a cautious sound, the spear head had already pierced into the rocks on the ground. He felt a sense of emptiness in his body. After using the 3 luminaries calamity twice in a row, he was almost at his limit. However, when he looked up, he discovered that the front half of the dragon snake's body was crazily twisting as it charged toward Qin Yin. It opened its mouth and was about to swallow this empire's princess. Lin Muyu did not have time to consider anything. He dove down in a few steps and opened his arms to hug Qin Yin. However, it seemed like it was too late. There was a fishy smell behind him, and in the blink of an eye, it was already dark. He and Qin Yin had entered a fishy and dark space. They had been swallowed by a huge snake. Qin Yin was already severely injured. She opened her eyes weakly, but she could not see anything. She could only feel Lin Muyu's warm embrace. She called out softly, "You." Lin Muyu hugged her tightly. "Don't open your eyes. The dragon snake has venom in its body and it will blind your eyes. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. We were just eaten by the snake." It was easy for him to say, but he had long wanted to die. Qin Yin closed her eyes and buried her face in Lin Muyu's neck. However, after the two of them entered the intestines of the dragon snake, there seemed to be barbs on the walls of the intestines and they kept sliding down. Both she and Lin Muyu knew that if they went any further, there would be a pool of acid. That was where the dragon snake melted its food. In the blink of an eye, the lack of air made it difficult for Qin Yin to breathe. She quickly lost consciousness and the arm that was hugging Lin Muyu was about to let go. Lin Muyu's heart was in a mess. He could not let Qin Yin die like this. Otherwise, all his efforts would be in vain. He hurriedly used his martial soul. Immediately, the gourd vines passed through the scales of the dragon snake, and the gourd leaves bloomed on the outside, absorbing the fresh air outside. His martial soul and physique merged into one, and the fresh air was absorbed by Lin Muyu in the blink of an eye. In the enclosed space full of the dragon snake's gastric juice and acid, Lin Muyu held Qin Yin's face and kissed her red lips, passing the fresh air to her. Qin Yin's delicate body trembled slightly. Her last consciousness let her know what had happened. Lin Muyu was using his life to save her life. Furthermore, this was her first kiss. Although she liked this man, this space was so inappropriate. Not to mention the fact that they were surrounded by the dragon snake's gastric juice. There was also a pile of broken limbs and blood. She could even feel the corpse of an imperial army soldier behind her. No matter how she looked at it, this scene could not be considered romantic. What a pity. The romantic first kiss that a young girl had been looking forward to for 20 years was completed in such a shameful manner. Lin Muyu naturally did not know what Qin Yin was thinking. He and she were still being hooked by the dragon snake's intestines and sent down to the lower layers. They were about to be digested. He hugged Qin Yin tightly with one hand and his other hand grabbed everywhere. Suddenly, with a paw sound, he seemed to have grabbed onto something as hard as iron. It was the handle of the pear blossom spear, a life-saving straw. He suddenly exerted strength in his arm and slowly spat out his battle chi. He gave an order with his thoughts and the purgatory chains attacked. Come out, Ice Qilin. The 11,000-year spear spirit Ice Qilin pounced out of the spear with a furious roar. Its sharp claws quickly tore everything in the dragon snake's stomach. Although it was only a short-lived attack, it completely destroyed the dragon snake's internal organs and froze everything around it with frost. This made Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stay here, and they were not sent into the dragon snake's stomach. His strength was quickly overdrawn. This time even Lin Muyu himself had difficulty breathing. The consecutive bitter battles had almost exhausted all his strength. Fortunately, the surrounding liquid had already frozen. Qin Yin, who was in his arms, was no longer moving. She had fainted and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Lin Muyu could not help but laugh at himself. Suddenly he felt dizzy and he fainted while hugging Qin Yin. What's going on? A group of Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards rushed into the side hall of the West Courtyard with torches in their hands. Qin Jin walked in surrounded by the crowd, but he was shocked to see the huge dragon snake's corpse lying in front of him. There was still the dragon snake's beast spirit lingering in the air. Qin Jin's heart was in a mess and he shouted, Xiao Yin, where is she? The maids were so frightened that they did not dare to speak. In the corner, Feng Jixing, who was seriously injured, muttered, Her Highness Yin and you were both swallowed by the dragon snake. Hurry, cut open the dragon snake's abdomen and they might still be saved. Hurry. Qin Lei, who was covered in blood, leaped forward with the thunder split saber in hand. He fiercely slashed a few times with the saber, but the hard scales of the dragon snake were repelled. Qin Jin gritted his teeth, raised his hand and threw his sword to Qin Lei. I'll use my Desolation Sword. The Desolation Sword, a 6th-tier Saint-grade sword, was known as the strongest weapon in Lanyan City. Pa. Qin Lei held the Desolation Sword with both hands and muttered to himself. His god-binding chain's martial soul lingered around the Desolation Sword, and immediately the Saint-grade sword glowed with a dazzling light. Accompanied by Qin Lei's movements, the sword cut open the dragon snake's scales with a caw-caw-caw sound. In the blink of an eye, a huge bloody hole was torn open, and the scene inside was immediately revealed to everyone. Icy mist rose and the blood condensed into ice. Amidst the severed limbs, Lin Muyu maintained the posture of holding Qin Yin tightly. He flipped over and landed on the ground from within the dragon snake's abdomen. The white battle robe behind him had already been dyed the color of blood, and there were shards of ice on his face. Qin Yin, on the other hand, buried her face in Lin Muyu's chest, not moving at all. Xiao Yin. Qin Jin's entire body trembled and tears instantly flowed down his face. You. Chu Huayin looked at Lin Muyu in pain and he clenched his fists tightly. However, Qin Lei furrowed his brows and said, Your Majesty, is Her Highness still breathing? Qin Jin took a step forward and wanted to hug Qin Yin, but he was unable to separate her from Lin Muyu's embrace. He hurriedly said, Quickly melt their ice and quickly save Her Highness. Yes. Chu Huayin flew forward, ignoring the bloody wound on his shoulder. With a low shout, he covered Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's bodies with his palms. His battle energy rapidly increased, and it turned into a warm and gentle force that seeped into their bodies. Among everyone present, Qin Lei and Feng Jixing's power was too overbearing. Only Chu Huayin's power leaned towards the gentle side, and it wouldn't hurt the two who were already sealed in ice. As the ice and snow rapidly melted, Qin Yin gently leaned against Lin Muyu's chest. Her body slowly twitched and she slowly opened her eyes. She had actually woken up even faster than Lin Muyu. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw that Lin Muyu's eyes were tightly shut, and her face was ashen. Qin Yin thought that Lin Muyu had already died and she couldn't help but feel sorrow. Tears flowed out of her eyes as she said, "You can't die, you." Chu Huayin tugged at her from the side and said, "Your Highness." Qin Yin immediately pushed him away angrily. "Don't touch me, don't touch me." Chu Huayin angrily touched his nose. "Your Highness, you isn't dead yet. He's still breathing." "Ah?" Qin Yin immediately put away her fierce expression and smiled at Lin Muyu. She cupped his face and said, If you aren't dead, can you answer me?" Cough, cough. Lin Muyu suddenly coughed violently and coughed out the blood clot in her throat. She frowned and said, "Xiaoyin, my chest hurts because of you." Qin Yin looked down and realized that she was in a mess in the dragon snake's stomach. Her clothes were already in disarray and she no longer looked like a princess. Her clothes had slid down, and her two blood-stained peaks were pressed tightly against Lin Muyu's chest armor. Her figure was already very impressive, and her two peaks were naturally not light. It was no wonder that Lin Muyu would say that her chest hurt. In an instant the proud princess's face turned red. She scrambled to her feet and tightened her cloak. She said, "Hurry up and help you up. Let's see how his injuries are." In the corner, Feng Jixing lay there weakly. His eyes were filled with hidden bitterness as he casually said, "Who's more injured than me? Why doesn't anyone care about me?" Chu Huayin walked forward. "Sai, I'm here to care about you. Go away." Chapter 163. Taking in large mouthfuls of fresh air, Lin Muyu's martial soul's power was like a dried-up pool of water, and at this time after escaping, it finally began to gather into a stream bit by bit. After about 5 minutes her complexion looked much better, but the wounds on her body looked a little scary. Qin Jin supported Qin Yin's arm and asked with concern, "Xiaoyin, are your injuries serious?" "Not serious, father doesn't need to worry too much." Qin Yin tidied up her long hair that was covered in mucus and pouted, "But I need to find a place to take a bath. My body is so dirty and uncomfortable." "Imperial father, can I borrow your central courtyard to take a bath?" Qin Jin couldn't help but laugh. "Someone bring Her Highness to the central courtyard to take a bath." "Yes." Qin Yin turned to look at Lin Muyu and said, "You wait for me to tidy myself up before coming to see you." "You are the same, your whole body is dirty, quickly go and take a bath." "Yes, your Highness." Lin Muyu smiled respectfully. Qin Jin raised his eyebrows and said, "Someone bring Lin Muyu to the west courtyard to take a bath and prepare a new set of Imperial Guard armor for him." "Yes, your Majesty." Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, Chu Huaijin and the others walked over one after another and asked about Lin Muyu's injuries. He was covered in blood and looked too scary. No matter how they looked, he didn't look fine. Are you sure you're okay?" Chu Huaijin frowned and said, "Look at you, it seems like you will die at any time. Don't force yourself. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to explain it to Yao." "Don't worry." Lin Muyu patted the broken breastplate on his chest and smiled, "My body is fine." "Oh right, I sent a letter to Sister Chu Yao and asked her to warn you guys as soon as possible. Did you guys receive the news?" Qin Lei nodded his head. "And I did receive the news, but it was slightly late. Miss Chu Yao came to inform me on her own." You tell her yourself." As he spoke, Qin Lei moved aside. Behind him was shockingly Chu Yao, who was dressed in a pure and clean spirit medicine department attire. Lin Muyu did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Older sister, why did you come by yourself? Isn't it possible to pass messages through Yushu?" Chu Yao's beautiful eyes were filled with reproach and worry as she said, "You're still talking about it. I didn't tame a second messenger bird, so I had to rush here myself. The spiritual medicine department didn't have any extra war horses. so I spent a month's salary to buy one. I didn't expect you to be ahead of me. Haha. Lin Muyu was slightly embarrassed as she said, there was no other way. I was worried that something would happen in Deer Garden, so I directly went to the Eagle Nest camp and mobilized 300 people to rush over as reinforcements. Not far away, Qin Jin said with an extremely dignified smile. Lin Muyu, it's all thanks to the timely arrival of your 300 men from the Eagle Nest camp. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I and the other ministers would have been buried under the swords of the rebels from the House of Chivalry. Your Majesty has a flood of good fortune. Nothing will happen to you. After saying that, Lin Muyu almost had goosebumps. She thought to herself, when did she learn to say such flattering words? Qin Jin casually said a few words, then led the ministers to the central courtyard to discuss matters. Lin Muyu found the burning prairie sword and forcefully dug out the spirit stone of the 12,300-year-old dragon snake. Then she pulled out the pear blossom spear from the dragon snake's body, washed it and put it into her cosmos sack. Then, accompanied by Chu Yao, Chu Huaying and Feng Jixing, she went to the western courtyard to take a bath. The few people who had gone through the battle all needed to take a bath and wash up. After all, each of them had a relatively special identity and status. It was a mistake for the people around the emperor to not be properly groomed. Brother Feng, this burrowing dragon, is dead. What about the white crane? Lin Muyu asked as they walked. Feng Jixing muttered to himself, then said, Qin Lei, Chu Huaying and the other imperial guards surrounded the white crane. They used all kinds of weapons and even used fire attacks. Finally, they forced the white crane to escape. Now the white crane's whereabouts are unknown. Oh. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She said, I didn't expect that we actually didn't catch a single leader this time. The white crane escaped and so did Ji Yong and Li Qianxuan. I've been undercover at the headquarters of the House of Chivalry for so long, but in the end I still couldn't find their assassination intentions. Is it as simple as changing the ruler of the empire? A cautious look flashed across Feng Jixing's face. He said, this matter. Let's report it to His Majesty later. The House of Chivalry has been making things difficult for us again and again. It's time for us to take action. Yes. In the West Court, the bathing spot was actually also a hot spring. This was because this villa was built on a natural hot spring. When Lin Muyu took off her armor, Chu Yao stood at the side. She had no intention of leaving. She looked at the crisscrossed wounds on Lin Muyu's body and frowned slightly. She said, your body. Lin Muyu looked down and couldn't help but smile. She said, it's okay. I'll temper my skin a little and there won't be any scars left. It won't affect my beauty. Don't leave any hidden injuries or partial disabilities. Hurry up and take a bath. After that, come to me. I'll give you a massage. Massage? Lin Muyu's eyes widened. She couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. After taking a bath, she put on a tight-fitting shirt and went outside. Chu Yao was waiting there. She took out her silver needles and pouted. Lie down. Oh. Lin Muyu lay down according to her words. Chu Yao immediately inserted 7 or 8 silver needles into the acupoints. Then she opened her fingers. A faint green true energy was enshrouded between her fingers. It gently flowed through Lin Muyu's meridians. Suddenly, a refreshing and comfortable feeling spread throughout her body. The blockage in her meridians was slowly eliminated by Chu Yao. What kind of treatment is this? Lin Muyu was surprised. She said, Sister Chu Yao, in my hometown there are many girls who are good at massaging, but there is no one who has such a brilliant technique. Chu Yao chuckled. She said, Idiot you, how is this a massage technique? This is the divine oracle hand recorded in the God of Medicine's tome. It's a superb technique that can cure internal diseases through the skin. As a member of the spiritual medicine department, I naturally can't just learn alchemy. The divine oracle hand is enough to make me an excellent medical officer. Ah, that's great, Lin Muyu said cheerfully. If I have my own army in the future, I'll definitely hire you as the chief medical officer with a high salary. Really? Chu Yao giggled. She said, I'm not only good at alchemy and the divine oracle hand. I've already mastered using fire and wind for your 4 elemental sword control. However, I'm still not good enough with lightning and water. In time, I'll not only be an excellent medical officer, but also an excellent general. Oh, you're quite open-minded. Lin Muyu couldn't help but tease. Chu Yao looked at Lin Muyu's strong muscles and finally blushed. She said, "All right, put on your armor. Your body is basically fine now. Remember to apply medicine." At this moment, Chu Huaying and Feng Jixing had also returned from bathing. Chu Huaying had already put on his armor and was extraordinarily handsome. Chu Yao's older brother was indeed an astonishingly handsome man, but Feng Jixing was less handsome than Chu Huaying and more carefree. He clutched his chest and limped as he said, "Damn! The dragon snake that the pale crane tamed almost crippled me. My cultivation at the second heavenly stage is indeed far from enough." "Big brother Feng has reached the second heavenly stage?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. "That's right." Feng Jixing raised his hand and waved. Instantly, his battle chi turned into a piece of armor that stopped around his arm. He said with a smile, "Didn't you see the battle armor that I condensed when I was fighting the dragon snake?" "Oh, I didn't pay much attention, brat." Feng Jixing pursed his lips and said with a smile, "That's right. This is all thanks to your dream of the extreme. Otherwise, Qin Lei and I wouldn't have reached the Heavenly King stage so quickly." "Thank you so much, you." "You're welcome. That's right." Dream of the extreme is a recipe that has been lost for a long time. Furthermore, only Medicine King level medicine refiners can refine it. I'm afraid that even Miss Chu Yao might not be able to refine it. "Brat, how many more skills do you have that you haven't shown us?" Haha. Lin Muyu scratched her head awkwardly. "Everyone has some secrets. Don't ask me about this. Besides, my medicine refinement skills are just some small tricks that aren't worth mentioning. Big brother Feng, don't look into this. I won't harm you guys." And that's true. Feng Jixing lay heavily on the bed. His face was a little pale. Indeed, his injuries were the heaviest. After all, he was the one who had fought the dragon serpent for the longest time. The 12,300-year-old dragon serpent was equivalent to a level 90 Saint Venerable. He, who had just become a level 70 Heavenly Venerable, was able to contend with the dragon serpent without dying. This was already a sign of his strength. Chu Huaying looked up and said, "Yao, heal General Feng's injuries. His martial soul is the purple electric flame wolf. It's an idiot that's only good at attacking but not good at self-healing. It can't be compared to Yu's gourd." Feng Jixing grinned. "Damn it. Whose martial soul are you calling an idiot?" "Your purple marten is the idiot." Chu Yao raised her hand. The purple marten martial soul emerged from her body and stood on her shoulder. She smiled and said, "Imperial Guard Commander Feng Jixing, if you say that the purple marten is an idiot, then I won't heal your injuries." Feng Jixing hurriedly changed his words. He smiled and said, "I'm saying that Chu Huaying's purple marten is an idiot. Miss Chu Yao's purple marten is obviously very smart." Chu Yao giggled. She applied some medicine to Feng Jixing's wounds. Then she used the Holy Oracle's hand to open up the blockages in his blood vessels and the injuries in his joints. She also bandaged Feng Jixing's wounds and put a splint on his broken arm. Speaking of which, Feng Jixing was indeed a tough guy. His arm had been broken for so long, but it was still hanging on his shoulder. He actually didn't cry out in pain at all. Not long after, an official walked in and said, "Commander Feng Jixing, Lord Chu Huaying and Lord Lin Muyu, His Majesty has summoned you to the central courtyard to discuss matters. Please follow me." "Yes." Chu Huaying turned around and smiled at Chu Yao. "We'll be back soon. Is Yao waiting for us here?" "No, I'll wait for you outside the central courtyard." "All right." Chapter 164. The main hall of the central garden was the most solemn and dignified hall in the entire Deer Garden Palace. At this moment, many officials had gathered, and the outside of the main hall was heavily protected by the Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards. After the assassination attempt by the House of Chivalry, Feng Jixing once again mobilized the nearby 10,000 Imperial Guards to protect the Emperor and Princess in Deer Garden. He did not dare to be careless again. The officials stood on both sides. Feng Jixing, Chu Huaying and Lin Muyu, who were dressed in white robes and armor, slowly entered the main hall in a triangular formation. They stepped on the blood-red carpet and walked all the way to the place closest to the Emperor Qinjin. They saluted in unison and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Lin Muyu secretly rejoiced. After entering Lanyan City, she immediately became a soldier. This was a good thing. Even when she saw the emperor, she only needed to salute and did not need to kneel. She was not like those civil officials who knelt at the drop of a hat. They had no moral integrity at all. Qin Jin smiled and nodded. At ease. Qin Yin stood beside her father and smiled at Lin Muyu. She stuck out her tongue when the officials lowered their heads and did not dare to look. As the most beautiful woman in the empire, she was still so beautiful even when she made a face. Chu Huaying could not help but laugh secretly. His shoulders trembled. Feng Jixing immediately turned to look at him and said, "Old Chu, be more serious." Lin Muyu suppressed her smile and looked up at Qin Yin. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Instead, it was the princess who laughed. She did not look serious at all. Cough, cough. Qin Jin turned to look at his precious daughter, but he could not bear to blame her. He coughed and said, "These traitors from the House of Chivalry actually dared to sneak attack Deer Garden in the middle of the night. This is simply outrageous. I have decided to launch a nationwide campaign to exterminate the traitors from the House of Chivalry. I will immediately send a letter to all the provincial governors. I want all the houses of chivalry in the country to be razed to the ground within a month." "Your Majesty is wise." The officials cheered. Qin Jin heaved a sigh of relief and said, "This time the Saint Realm Ashen Crane actually participated in the rebellion. Fortunately, Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, Chu Huaying, and the other generals risked their lives to protect us. Otherwise, Her Highness Yin and I would have been killed." "I understand. The person who contributed the most in this rescue mission is Lin Muyu. If he had not disobeyed Eagle Guard Commander Meng Fong's order and led 300 Eagle Guard warriors to reinforce us, the consequences would have been unthinkable." Looking at Lin Muyu, Qin Jin's eyes were filled with praise as he asked, "Lin Muyu, what kind of reward do you want?" Lin Muyu was startled and said, "Your Majesty, this lowly general has not thought of a reward." The officials laughed loudly and Qin Jin laughed as well. "You have saved us and the officials, and even risked your life to save Her Highness Yin from the belly of a dragon or snake. You have already established an unparalleled merit. If we do not reward you with something, it would seem that our Qin Empire does not have the heart to select talents and appoint people with ability. Speak, do you want wealth or an official title?" Lin Muyu furrowed her brows and thought for a long time. She said, "Your Majesty, I do not lack wealth. As for an official title, I have yet to fully understand the classification of the Empire's official titles, so it is not good for me to ask for anything. Whatever your Majesty wants to give, this lowly general will gladly accept." Qin Jin couldn't help but laugh loudly. "What a good Lin Muyu. Your personality is quite similar to that of Lord Huading Chu Chu." As he spoke, Qin Jin looked at Qin Yin and said, "Xiao Yin, what do you think father should reward Lin Muyu with?" Qin Yin blinked her eyes and said with a smile, "You does not have the experience to lead troops, so it is not suitable for him to be given a high rank. In my opinion, bestow him the rank of Xiang Dragon General. Then appoint him as the commander of the Eagle Nest Camp and give him the title of Zetian Palace's envoy. What does Imperial Father think?" "Good." Qin Jin smiled and said, "Lin Muyu, do you accept Her Highness Yin's suggestion?" Lin Muyu nodded. "I will listen to Xiao Yin." Qin Jin laughed and said in a clear voice, "Lin Muyu, listen to me. We will immediately promote you to Xiang Dragon General and give you the salary of a Xiang Dragon General. You will also be promoted to the commander of the Eagle Nest Camp. That brute Meng Fong will be sent to the border to be a Xiang Dragon General." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Lin Muyu cupped her fists and bowed respectfully. Feng Jixing held back his laughter and said, "Congratulations, you. There are a total of 3 commanders in the Royal Guards. 1 for the Dragon Guards, 1 for the Tiger Guards, and 1 for the Eagle Guards. You are now one of the 3 commanders. Your rank is the same as that old brat Chu Huayin." Chu Huayin was the commander of the Dragon Guards. At this point, 2/3 of the Royal Guards were under the control of Lin Muyu and Chu Huayin. After that, Qin Jin also rewarded Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, Chu Huayin and the others. The rewards were in the form of Jining coins, fertile land and so on. The 3 of them had relatively high ranks of nobility. Lin Muyu stood quietly at the side. In reality, her rank was not enough to attend such a hearing. After all, the Xiang Dragon General was only the 6th rank out of the 14 ranks of the Empire's military. There were still 5 ranks above her, namely Deputy General, Eastern Suppression General, State Protector General, State Suppression General and Commander General. However, it was already not bad. After all, there were still 8 ranks below her, namely Brigadier General, Feather Colonel, Valiant Cavalry Colonel, Halberd Captain, Sergeant and Sergeant. Moreover, this Xiang Dragon General was directly under the command of Lanyan City. The central government was much stronger than the local government. The real power in their hands was completely different. A small lieutenant in the central government could be treated as a general in the border army. This was not a rare occurrence. After the rewards, Qin Jin held the Desolation Sword in his hand and said, "Now, let's discuss how to eradicate the rebellious forces of the House of Chivalry." State Protector General Wuxia stepped out and cupped his fists. "Your Majesty, the House of Chivalry's forces are very complicated in the Empire. They have their headquarters and branches everywhere. It is said that the House of Chivalry can be found in all the major cities in the Empire. The total number of members who are above the level of lone swordsman has already exceeded 3 million. Therefore, the eradication of the House of Chivalry requires long-term planning." "Long-term planning?" Qin Lei raised his eyebrows and said, "General Yuan, the henchmen of the House of Chivalry almost killed Your Majesty and Her Highness Yin. Do we still need long-term planning? Tell me, isn't the world the Qin family's world? If Your Majesty says to eradicate them, then they must be eradicated. There is no room for negotiation." Yuanxia was stunned. "Commander Qin Lei, that is not what I mean. I am only saying that this matter needs to be done slowly and cannot be rushed." Qin Jin said, "Stop arguing. Feng Jixing, you are the most reliable and experienced in handling matters. Tell me, what do you think we should do?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Feng Jixing cupped his fists and a glint of light flashed across his eyes. "It is very simple. First, eradicate the House of Chivalry within the Lanyan city of the imperial capital. Then send out elite soldiers and generals to expand outwards. First, pacify the House of Chivalry in the few provinces in the north and maintain the stability of the north. After that, expand to the provinces in the south. No matter how deep the roots of the House of Chivalry are, we will definitely be able to uproot them." Qin Jin nodded and smiled. "All right, then I will leave this matter to you to handle." "Yes." Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, "I have a presumptuous request. I hope that Your Majesty can agree to it." "Speak." "I want 2 people." "Which you?" Qin Jin was stunned. Feng Jixing smiled. "Lin Muyu and Chu Huaying. These 2 imperial guards are smart and capable. If I have their assistance in pacifying the House of Chivalry, I will be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort." "All right, approved." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Feng Jixing was overjoyed. Lin Muyu pursed her lips and said softly, "If you want people so badly, why don't you ask whether Brother Chu Huaying and I are willing? Do you still have any human rights?" Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said in a low voice, "Rascal, Brother Feng needs your help now. If you don't help me, who else will? Besides, I, Feng Jixing, am on a mission to annihilate the House of Chivalry. Do you know how many people are waiting to see me make a fool of myself? If I fail, I might be impeached. I might not even be able to keep my position as the commander of the Imperial Guards." Lin Muyu snickered. "That's perfect. You can join my mercenary group and be a 10-man squad leader." "I don't want to talk to you anymore." Feng Jixing was speechless. Chu Huaying cupped his fists and snickered. "It looks like the 2 of you are not ordinary people." Feng Jixing was speechless. Lin Muyu was speechless. After the meeting, the emperor announced that the meeting was dismissed and that they would return to Lanyan City in the afternoon. The officials dispersed. Lin Muyu was about to leave when an attendant suddenly walked up to her and said with a smile, "Lady Lin Muyu, His Majesty invites you to the rear hall to speak." Lin Muyu followed him. When she arrived at the rear hall, Qin Jin and Qin Yin were both there. Qin Yin was still dressed like a princess, but Qin Jin had taken off his dragon robe and was dressed in plain clothes. He said with a smile, "Lin Muyu, do you know why I have summoned you here?" "I don't know." Lin Muyu answered honestly. Qin Jin smiled. "I heard that you lost your memory when you were in Silver Fir City. You don't remember who you are or who your family is. What about now? Do you still remember?" Lin Muyu was taken aback. She replied, "I still don't remember." "Good." Qin Jin waved his sleeves and said with a smile, "I want to adopt you as my son." How about it? Adopted son? Lin Muyu was stunned. Dragon-seeking forest. Before dawn, the mountain was cold and cheerless. Accompanied by rustling sounds, an old man emerged from a nameless cave. His face was covered in dirt and he carried a bamboo basket on his back. The basket was filled with rare herbs. He had a smug look on his face as he chuckled. I've even found a grade 8 herb. Let's see if that brat you still dares to mock me, Choo-Choo, for not knowing anything about medicine. He strode as if he was flying, heading straight for Deer Cry Park. At this moment, the sound of hooves could be heard from the foot of the mountain. A black warhorse was galloping on the mountain path with its scorching breath. On the warhorse, an old man was holding an iron staff in his hand. His entire body was covered in blood, and his white hair and beard were stained with blood. Without a doubt, this blood belonged to the royal guards and royal army. Song Baihe only had less than 30% of his fighting aura left in his body. His eyes were a little dazed and his face was full of hatred. He muttered to himself, I didn't expect Qin Lei to have stepped into the second level of the heavenly realm. Damn Qin Lei, damn God-binding chains. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid I would have already succeeded. It's just a pity that my dragon snake is gone just like that. However, at this moment, a scorching hot domain suddenly appeared in the air. Song Baihe raised his head abruptly, and saw a huge flaming palm descending from the sky. The powerful pressure of the Saint Realm descended, and at the same time, Choo-Choo's dignified voice could be heard. Song Baihe, you could have taken the road to heaven, but you chose to barge into the doorless hell. Chapter 165. Adopted son? Lin Muyu looked at Qin Jin in bewilderment. Qin Jin smiled faintly. Actually, the real reason is that you saved Xiaoyin twice, so we have decided to let Xiaoyin recognize you as her sworn brother. However, if you are unwilling, then forget it. Qin Yin stood in front of Lin Muyu, her hands crossed in front of her. Her beautiful eyes shone with hope, yet she did not dare to look at Lin Muyu. By the time Qin Jin finished speaking, her pretty face was already completely red. Lin Muyu was startled but did not think too much about it. She smiled and said, then let's do it. Having a younger sister like Her Highness Yin is my life's greatest wish. Is that so? Qin Jin could not help but smile. Good. Then from now on you are my, Qin Jin's, adopted son and a member of the Qin family. Are you willing to change your surname to Qin? Can I not change it? Lin Muyu asked. Qin Jin laughed heartily. Yes. Many thanks to your majesty for granting my wish. Qin Jin was clearly in a good mood. He placed his palm on Lin Muyu's shoulder and said, You are a talent. From now on you will be a member of the family. A member of the Qin family who does not share the same surname will bring you courage and glory. However, you must also pledge your loyalty and oath to the family. Go Xiaoyin will help you take the oath to join the family. After that, I will have someone write your name into the Qin family's genealogy book. From the side, Qin Yin walked over with a smile and reached out to hold Lin Muyu's hand. When their fingers interlocked, the warmth from Qin Yin's little hand caused Lin Muyu to be a little dazed. Qin Yin's face was also bright red as she said, I will have to call you Big Brother from now on. Then Big Brother, you come with me. All right. In a corner of the rear hall, the memorial tablets of the family's ancestors were enshrined. In the most conspicuous position, there was a memorial tablet with the words, Founding Emperor Qin Yi's Memorial Tablet, written on it. Lin Muyu couldn't help feeling a little surprised. She asked, Xiaoyin Qin Yi, how many years has it been since he passed away? Qin Yin was stunned and said, Qin Yi was our ancestor and the first master of the Qin Empire to step into the divine state. With his divine state strength and military strategy, he united the 11 countries on the mainland that had been at war for many years and created the prosperity of the Qin Empire. It is said that he retired after the founding of the empire and then went on a spiritual journey for thousands of years, so here is his memorial tablet. So that's how it is. Lin Muyu couldn't help but recall the scene when she transmigrated to this dimension. She saw Qin Yi leading hundreds of immortal state and sanctuary powerhouses to fight the 7 luminaries demon emperor. Qin Yi was indeed dead at that time. He was devoured by the power of the 7 glorious stars transformation. Thinking about it, this memorial tablet was indeed suitable to worship. Alright, big brother, you kneel properly. Qin Yin and Lin Muyu knelt together in front of the memorial tablet of the empire's ancestors. The smile on her face disappeared and she said very seriously, "The family has 32 words, which is also the foundation and family rule for the Qin family to be able to dominate the mainland. I say one sentence and big brother you will say one sentence after Xiao Yin, okay?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded lightly. Qin Yin pursed her red lips and scattered the princess cloak behind her. Her beautiful eyes looked at the memorial tablets one after another, yearning and confusion in her eyes. Then she said one word at a time, calm and unperturbed, no matter when or where, fearless in the face of danger and indifferent to favor or disgrace. "Revenge must be taken. A gentleman is modest, but if there is an enemy he must take revenge, rather die than submit. Life and death are up to the heavens. A proud and unyielding character will never live without purpose. Be open-minded like a valley, like flowing water and floating clouds, supercilious and caring for the world. A promise is worth its weight in gold. A promise must be kept, words must be spoken cautiously and words must be said. Take the lead, valiant in battle, leading the charge and breaking through enemy lines. Be courteous to the wise, holding a high position, being humble and able to convince people with virtue, unswervingly loyal, wholeheartedly serving the country, treading on blades and drinking blood without regrets." 32 words of proverb were, in fact, keep calm, seek revenge, rather die than surrender, be open-minded, keep your word, take the lead, be courteous and be loyal. Lin Muyu carefully thought about these 32 words. There had to be a reason why the Qin family was able to survive for so long. These 32 words indeed represented a kind of spirit. In other words, these 32 words represented a kind of civilization. It was just that when it was put into practice, it had gone astray. That was why there was such unreasonable things as the concubine system. After saying this, Qin Yin stood up, held Lin Muyu's shoulder and said with a smile, "Big brother, you from now on, you are a member of our Qin family. Always remember the family's teachings." "Yes, I will." Lin Muyu nodded. These 32 words were indeed worthy of being his code of conduct. Moreover, he would carry them out to the letter. This was his attitude. Qin Jin watched all of this from the back and said with a smile, "All right, since you is now a member of our family, then why don't you stay for breakfast?" "Yes, your majesty." Qin Jin was immediately displeased and said, "Since we have already recognized you as my godson, why don't you change the way you address me?" Lin Muyu was stunned and then felt that it was a little awkward, so she said, What should I call you?" Qin Yin burst into laughter. "Call me father after me." Lin Muyu. In the end he still called him father like Qin Yin, which made Qin Jin smile happily. His face was full of wrinkles and this emperor was only close to 50 years old, but his face was already showing signs of age. Firstly, it had to do with his insufficient cultivation, and secondly, it was probably because he had been tormented to this extent by the affairs of this huge empire. Although Qin Jin was weak, he was definitely not a fatuous emperor, so it wasn't like she had recognized a traitor as her father, right? Lin Muyu thought to herself. Breakfast couldn't be considered too sumptuous, and there were only a few side dishes. However, after a busy night, Lin Muyu's stomach was already rumbling with hunger. She picked up the beef buns from the bowl and ate them in big bites, causing Qin Yin and Qin Jin to chuckle at the side. Qin Jin pushed the plate of beef buns in front of Lin Muyu and said with a smile, "Eat more if you like it. When we return to Lanyan City, Father will personally cook for you and make beef buns from the White Cloud Tavern. I guarantee that they will be even better than the ones made by the head chef of the White Cloud Tavern." Lin Muyu was stunned. "Father, you know how to cook?" Qin Yin giggled. "Humph, don't you know that father is known for having 2 talents? The first is poetry and painting and the second is culinary skills. Let me tell you, even the best imperial chef in Zetian Palace can't cook as well as father. Brother, you have to come back to Zetian Palace often, or else you won't have a chance to taste father's cooking." All right. He was still trembling with fear and trepidation. As the saying went, being in the emperor's company was like being with the tiger. Was the current Qin Jin still the same tiger-like emperor? Or was he his adoptive father now? Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs? Lin Muyu didn't understand and she didn't understand. She would just take it one step at a time. Regardless of whether it was good or bad now, at least she had a home in this world. With a father like Qin Jin who was skilled in culinary skills and poetry, and a younger sister like Qin Yin who was sometimes unruly and sometimes considerate, it seemed like it wasn't bad at all. After a short rest in the morning, she followed the team back to Lanyan City in the afternoon. In Zhou Palace, during an afternoon meeting with the officials, Qin Jin publicly announced that he would recognize Lin Muyu as his adopted son. This instantly caused a huge commotion and the officials were all stunned. It seemed like the Qin family hadn't had an emperor recognize an outsider as his adopted son for many years. The current Lin Muyu was already considered a proud son who was doted on by everyone. They really didn't know where this brat got his luck from. Congratulations, Lord Lin Muyu. Congratulations, General. Congratulations, Lord, on becoming a member of the family. One by one, the officials congratulated Lin Muyu, and at the same time he saw the person he didn't want to see the most. Zheng Yifan had also arrived and he was still in good spirits. He smiled and said, "Congratulations, General Lin Muyu, on becoming His Majesty's adopted son. This is truly worthy of celebration. You're too kind, Divine Marquis. Now that General is His Majesty's adopted son, your future is bright. In the future, please take care of a small marquis like me." Zheng Yifan squinted his eyes and said with a smile. Lin Muyu frowned and said with a smile, "Divine Marquis, you're too polite. You're the cornerstone of the empire. I'm just a boorish fellow." Heh. Zheng Yifan sneered and walked away. "You put on a you're right look." Feng Jixing frowned as he looked at Zheng Yifan's back. He patted Lin Muyu's shoulder and said, "You, to be honest, I'm really envious of you. I've served His Majesty for so many years, but I've never had such a rare encounter. You're the first adopted son of His Majesty, and the Qin family has never accepted descendants with other surnames. You can be considered a pioneer." "Big brother Feng, are you really congratulating me?" Lin Muyu asked in a low voice. Feng Jixing moved closer and also lowered his voice. He smiled and said, "I don't know why His Majesty accepted you as his adopted son, but at least it shows that he values your strength. That's enough." Lin Muyu was taken aback. Was he just making use of her? No matter whether it was using me or being sincere, Lin Muyu had his own judgment. At least he could confirm that Qin Yin really liked him. That was enough. He could not protect the empire, but at least he could protect Qin Yin. At this moment, an attendant's voice suddenly came from outside the hall. "Lord Chu Chu requests an audience." Everyone was stunned and quickly separated into two sides. Chu Chu strode into the hall with a black bundle in his hand. He had a faint smile on his face as he arrived at the bottom of the steps. He cupped his fists and said, "This old man Chu Chu came late to the rescue. Please forgive me, Your Majesty." Qin Jin was a virtuous monarch. He smiled and said, "Chu Chu, you don't have to be like this. It's good that you're back. Alright, did you pick the herbs you wanted?" "I did." Chu Chu's lips curled up. He smiled and said, "Moreover, I had an unexpected harvest that I wanted to present to Your Majesty." "What is it?" Qin Jin asked with a smile. Chu Chu immediately knelt on one knee and put down the bundle in his hand. He opened it layer by layer. When he opened the last layer, it was a bloody head. Moreover, the head's beard and hair were all white and stained with blood. Even its eyes were wide open as if it had died with a grievance. Chu Chu turned around and looked at Zheng Yifan provocatively. He then cupped his fists and said, "This old man encountered that old thief Ashen Crane when I was descending the mountain. I took care of him and presented his dog's head to Your Majesty." Qin Jin was overjoyed. Good. Good. Chu has already made a great contribution." In an instant, Zheng Yifan's face turned extremely pale and ugly. Chapter 166. After the discussion, they settled on the details of the expedition against the House of Chivalry. Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu and Chu Huayin busied themselves with gathering soldiers, weapons and rations. As the Emperor's godson, Lin Muyu did not linger in the Zhou Palace Hall for long. She had long since gone to Eagle Nest Mountain to gather the troops. Very soon, only Qin Jin, Qin Yin and her father, as well as Qin Lei, who was standing guard outside the door, were left in the large palace hall. "Imperial father." Qin Yin frowned slightly and asked in annoyance, "Since you have adopted Big Brother Yu, Why don't you give him a title? An adopted son who doesn't even have a title. Don't you think this is unfair to him? Title. Qin Jin slowly picked up a cup of tea and blew on it, but he did not drink it. He said, Xiaoyin, Imperial Father only has you as his only child. If I were to give you a title, what title do you think he should be given? Should he be given the title of king? There are only two people in the empire who have been given the title of king. One is the Prince of Zhenan, Qin Yi, and the other is the Prince of Yuning, Qin Lian. They are both Imperial Father's brothers. If I were to confer the title of king on you, I would be going against the ancestors' rule, which states that outsiders cannot be conferred the title of king. Furthermore, even though you is brave and loyal, can you guarantee that he will not change in the future? Qin Yin was stunned. Her beautiful eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Imperial Father, are you worried that, big brother, you will fight with Xiaoyin for the throne? Yes. His green gourd martial spirit is only a 10th grade martial spirit, but it is so strong that it can contend against the Qin family's god-binding chains. Moreover, he is proficient in the art of alchemy, and it is said that he has the ability to refine medicine close to the level of an alchemy god. Moreover, you can defeat opponents with a higher cultivation base than him. Zhao Jin, Ouyang Qiu Zhenfang and the others have all been defeated by him. Some people claim that you uses an extremely evil and domineering mysterious power, a power that no one has ever heard of before. Qin Jin then sighed softly and said, people will always change. No matter how nice he is to you now, it's only because of your talent and beauty. What do you think? Qin Yin stood there in a daze. After a while she said, if I don't say any more. Qin Jin waved his hand and said gently, Xiaoyin, be good. Don't make things difficult for Imperial Father. The matter of Lin Muyu being bestowed the title of king will end here. Don't mention it again. Even if he joins the Qin family, someone else's blood flows in his veins. As long as he has outstanding military achievements, Imperial Father can continue to promote him. It doesn't matter even if he becomes the empire's marshal, but he will never be bestowed the title of king. Yes, Imperial Father. Qin Yin bit her red lips. A trace of loneliness flashed through her eyes. The power of an emperor was something she could not understand. Eagle Nest Mountain. The camp was in chaos. When Lin Muyu brought Wei Chou Xiahou Sang and the others to the Eagle Nest camp, the former commander Meng Fong was trembling as he held a black metal object. He said respectfully, My lord, this is the Eagle Nest camp's tiger seal. Please take good care of it. Commander, I didn't mean to replace you, I just... Lin Muyu wanted to comfort him, but she didn't know where to start. Meng Fong shook his head and smiled. No, this matter has nothing to do with anyone else. I was blind to actually stop you from bringing troops to reinforce Deer Cry Park. It was I, Meng Fong, who was muddle-headed. Right. I will leave the mountain immediately. As for the Eagle Nest camp, I hope that Lady Lin Muyu can take good care of it. This is the hard work of my brothers and I for many years. Lin Muyu smiled. Don't worry, I will. Meng Fong led his warhorse and went down the mountain alone to the royal army to receive his orders. A dignified commander of a camp leaving alone like this did indeed seem very lonely. After watching Meng Fong leave, Lin Muyu turned to the group of royal guards and said, All right, let's have a meeting. Yes, my lord. Eagle Nest Mountain had a total of nearly 700 soldiers under her control. This gave Lin Muyu a sense of accomplishment that she had never felt before. Goddamn, she was finally a person who held the power to decide life and death in her hands. A group of squad leaders and corporals of the royal guards stood on both sides. Two of them were very eye-catching. One was Gong Sun and the other was Su Gong. Because these two were former subordinates of the Divine Marquis residence, they were still members of the Divine Marquis residence. However, their presence in the Eagle Nest camp made people feel like they were out of place. Lin Muyu was someone who couldn't tolerate having a single grain of sand in her eyes. She took out a document and smiled. Lord Gong Sun, Lord Su Gong, I have good news here. His Majesty has agreed to my order to promote the two of you to Centurions of the Divine Might Battalion. You can now go down the mountain and report to the Divine Might Battalion. What? Gong Sun's face was full of shock. We're going to the Divine Might Battalion? Lin Muyu, what's the meaning of this? Don't forget how long you've been in the Eagle Nest camp. Are you trying to kick us out the moment you arrive? Lin Muyu smiled. This document has the golden seal of the Emperor's imperial seal on it. Anyone who resists will be executed. Men, escort Su Gong and Gong Sun down the mountain and erase their names from the Eagle Nest Camp's roster. Yes. Now that Lin Muyu was in charge of the Tiger Tally of the Eagle Nest Camp, she had a clear objective. She wanted to eliminate the opposing forces and make the Eagle Nest Camp completely under her control. A few minutes later, Gong Sun and Su Gong also left the mountain with a simple salute. Lin Muyu immediately reorganized the Eagle Nest Camp and promoted Wei Chou to deputy commander. She also promoted 4 centurions, each of whom would lead a team of 100 men. After everything was reorganized, the drums were sounded and everyone descended the mountain. More than 600 cavalrymen descended the mountain. The sound of the horses' hooves was deafening. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they could already see a large number of imperial guards waiting there from afar. They were the 5,000 men that Feng Jixing had gathered. In addition, there were also the 400 imperial guards that Chu Huaying had led. In total there were more than 6,000 soldiers. They marched majestically towards the House of Chivalry's headquarters in the capital. Although they had been delayed for a long time, it was still not too late to attack the headquarters now. After marching for half a day, they arrived at the foot of the mountain at dusk. From afar, the loose swordsmen on the mountainside had already lit a bonfire. It seemed that they had not given up on the headquarters yet. There were about 100 men guarding the entrance of the mountain. Attack the mountain! Feng Jixing commanded and led the cavalrymen to charge forward. As they neared the entrance of the mountain, he brandished his saber and slashed out a powerful saber energy. Boom! The simple and crude entrance of the mountain was immediately split into 2. More than 2,000 imperial guards charged forward and slashed the 100 or so loose swordsmen into a mess. Let's go up as well. Lin Muyu waved her hand, and Wei Chou and the others immediately led the Eagle Nest Battalion to charge forward. They arrived ahead of the imperial guards and killed their way to the headquarters of the House of Chivalry. Outside the headquarters there were cries of anguish. Many of the loose swordsmen who had been injured during the operation last night were currently recuperating. How could they withstand the combined attack of the Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards? Many of them knelt down and shouted at Lin Muyu, "Lin Yan, Master Game Envoy, please let us go. We don't know anything, we just want to eat." Chu Huaying frowned and asked, "What should we do with these loose swordsmen? Should we take them in and convert them into the Imperial Guards?" Feng Jixing raised his eyebrows and said proudly, "The warriors of the Imperial Guards are untainted by even a speck of dust. These scoundrels whose hands are stained with the blood of the commoners are not fit to join the Imperial Guards. Take them all down and put them into the border guards." Lin Muyu dismounted and stepped into the headquarters. She asked, "Where are Ji Yang and Li Qianshuan?" A silver venerable one had lost an arm. He panted heavily and said, "Envoy de Game Envoy and Envoy Liu left with their men at dawn today. We don't know where they are now. Some silver venerable ones and bronze venerable ones who can still move also left with them." Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "If I'm not mistaken, the jewels on the mountain were also taken away, right?" "They took a small portion. There are still a lot of them on the mountain that they couldn't take away in time." "Is that so? Someone come and take inventory of the treasures in the headquarters." "Yes, Commander." Wei Chou searched for a while and ran back happily. He smiled and said, "Commander, there is a secret room under the headquarters. There are many treasures hidden in it. Do you want to take a look, sir?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded and looked at Chu Huaying and Feng Jixing. "Let's go and take a look together?" Lin Muyu walked in front with a torch in her hand. She was shocked when she entered the secret chamber. The House of Chivalry's headquarters had more gold hub coins than the Tianjing mercenary group. There were more than 100 boxes of gold hub coins, but all the diamond coins had been taken away. Many of the boxes that stored the gold hub coins had been smashed, and there were traces of people grabbing gold hub coins. Ji Yang and the others had left in a hurry and were afraid of being chased, so they didn't take too many gold hub coins with them. Otherwise, with Ji Yang's greed, he would have taken all the gold here. "Ha!" Feng Jixing couldn't help but laugh. "The House of Chivalry is really rich." "Yes," Chu Huaying said excitedly. "Look over there, there's an armory." Lin Muyu quickly flew over. There was indeed a large pile of superior-grade weapons there. There were spears, swords, axes and so on. However, the profound grade and spirit grade weapons had been taken away by Ji Yang and his men. However, it was enough. These weapons could be used to equip ordinary soldiers. Chu Huaying opened a simple wooden box and smiled. I didn't expect Ji Yang to know about antiques and jade artifacts. This old man. There were jade bracelets, rings, necklaces and other accessories in the box. There were also a few scrolls of calligraphy and paintings. It was obvious that they were paintings by famous people. However, the calligraphy in this world was something Lin Muyu couldn't understand. She opened one of the scrolls and glanced at it. It was really King Ugly. Feng Jixing suddenly picked up a pure black thumb ring from the box. He smiled and said, "What material is this thumb ring made of? It doesn't look like jade and it looks very hard." As he spoke, he placed the thumb ring on the table, pulled out his saber and slashed at it. With a dang sound, sparks flew in all directions. The saber was deflected, but the thumb ring was not damaged at all. Its surface was still glowing. At this moment in Lin Muyu's Ihai Lulu's voice sounded. "Brother, this is the legendary Qingming stone. It's a type of spiritual jade and one of the hardest stones. Brother, you can refine the beast soul into this Qingming stone thumb ring. Then you can refine this thumb ring into a spiritual artifact." Lin Muyu's heart skipped a beat. She smiled and said, "Brother Feng, since this thumb ring is so hard, why don't you give it to me?" Feng Jixing grabbed a handful of gold coins and stuffed them into his pocket. When he was almost stuffed to the brim, he happily said, all right. The thumb ring is yours and the jin coins are mine. Damn, there are too many jin coins here. Can I take some more?" Chu Huaying looked at him contemptuously. His meaning was self-evident. "You still have the nerve to be the commander of the Imperial Guards?" Chapter 167. Starlight shone on the mountain ridges. The Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards set up camp around the main altar to rest for the night. Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing and Chu Huaying sat on a huge rock at the back of the mountain drinking wine. Beside them, Wei Qiu had set up a bonfire and was roasting a leg of lamb. These were the spoils of war that they had plundered. It was evident how extravagant and decadent Ji Yang and Li Qianxuan's daily lives were. "Commander." A 1,000-man commander rode to the giant rock and cupped his fists. "We have gathered all the maids of the headquarters of the House of Chivalry. There are a total of 724 of them. How should we deal with them?" Feng Jixing asked. "How should we deal with them according to the laws of the Empire?" The 1,000-man commander smiled. "According to the laws of the Empire, these maids have served the rebels for a long time and have become unclean. They should be sent to the nursery to be trained as concubines and sent to the military camps." Lin Muyu frowned and asked, "Is there no other way?" "I don't know." Lin Muyu looked up at Feng Jixing and said, "Brother Feng, these maids were originally kidnapped from the nearby villages. They had no choice but to serve the rangers. Brother, you know what kind of place the nursery is. I think, why don't we dismiss these maids? If we send them to the nursery, it's like sending them from one hell of a fire to another." Feng Jixing thought for a while and said, You don't have to say anything. I know what to do." As he spoke, Feng Jixing ordered, "General Zhao, take out a portion of the Jinin coins we seized and distribute it to these maids. 50 gold coins each. Then ask them one by one. If their families are still alive, send an Imperial Guard to escort them home. If their families are gone, bring them back to the capital and hand them over to the ICBC. At least they can find a job as a maid. At least they won't lose their freedom and dignity." The 1,000-man commander surnamed Zhao cupped his fists and had a look of joy on his face. "Commander is wise. On behalf of these maidservants, I thank Commander for your grace of rebirth." Feng Jixing waved his hand and said, "Don't be a busybody. Hurry up and get to work. Tell those Imperial Army brothers to remember to come back. If anyone dares to not come back, I will capture them one by one and bring them back." "Howard, Commander, you must be joking. How could our people not return? This subordinate will do it right away." Lin Muyu raised her wine pot and gently touched Feng Jixing's wine pot. She said in a deep voice, "Brother Feng, thank you." Feng Jixing let out a soft sigh and said with a smile, "Actually, when you smashed up the nurturing hall last time, Big Brother Feng was clearly secretly cheering for you." Perhaps it was also because of your courage that I was able to do such a thing. Feng Jixing has always been cautious and conscientious in this small half of his life, not daring to overstep his boundaries. It was only until I met you that I was able to do so many crazy things. Is that so? Lin Muyu leaned on the withered short pine behind her and tilted her head back to drink a mouthful of wine. She smiled and said, "In my hometown there is an old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. You are the commander of the imperial army and represent the majesty of the emperor. There will always be injustice in this world and you naturally cannot turn a blind eye to it. You are the person who wants to change this world." Feng Jixing was startled and a trace of fanaticism appeared in his cold eyes. In the blink of an eye, this trace of fanaticism disappeared without a trace. He smiled and said, "Smelly brat, what are you saying? We are soldiers and obeying orders is our responsibility. In the future don't say such crazy things to Big Brother. Otherwise I, Feng Jixing, may become the second Mad General Lin Muyu." Mad General? Lin Muyu was startled and said, "Who is slandering me like that?" Feng Jixing laughed and said, "Because of Little Bean Sprout, you publicly challenged the Divine Marquis residence. On the day of weapon refinement, you publicly cut off one of the arms of the #1 instructor, Xiao Jin. Because of the nurturing hall, you dared to challenge His Majesty. In the end you were exiled to the Tower of Babel and you actually came back alive. Don't you think that what you did in Lanyan City was not arrogant enough? Don't say that you don't know this title has long been circulating in the military camp of Lanyan City. Mad General Lin Muyu, this title is indeed very suitable for you." Lin Muyu angrily hugged the wine pot in her arms and said, "What are you saying? I only did what I should do. Brother Chu Huayin, you judge who is right between me and Brother Feng." Chu Huayin was using a long sword to pick up a piece of fragrant mutton. He said leisurely, "Feng Jixing's position is higher than yours. I think what Feng Jixing said is very reasonable." Lin Muyu was speechless for a moment. The three of them ate the meat together. Not long after they actually finished a whole fat leg of mutton. They were indeed martial artists. This kind of appetite was not something that ordinary people could have. Lin Muyu burped and suddenly thought of something. She smiled and asked, "Brother Feng, this mountain where the headquarters is located has been developed. Not far from here there is another North Mountain. It was originally occupied by a mercenary group. What do you plan to do with these two mountains?" Feng Jixing muttered, "This place is quite far from the capital. It is a full 6 hours of riding distance. If we don't deal with it properly, I'm afraid it will be occupied by the House of Chivalry again. Or perhaps it will be occupied by other wandering mercenaries. It will be disadvantageous to the surrounding people. Sai, perhaps we should hand it over to the local government to deal with it?" Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and said, "If the local government's army was really that useful, I'm afraid they wouldn't allow these mercenaries and rangers to burn, kill, and loot everywhere without anyone clearing them up. Then what do you think we should do?" Feng Jixing was at his wits' end. Lin Muyu smiled, "Why don't you give me this mountain?" Feng Jixing was shocked. "Brat, what do you want this mountain for? Are you going to keep a concubine? If that's the case, I'll secretly tell Her Highness Yin and Princess Shi." "Damn, Brother Feng, what kind of person do you think I am?" Lin Muyu's heart was moved by his words, but she still showed a loyal and courageous look and said, "I want to cultivate an army here. An army that is enough to deter the surrounding mercenaries and protect the local people." Feng Jixing smiled and laid on the giant rock. He looked at the starry sky and said, "I heard that the mercenary guild in Lanyan City has recently registered a new mercenary group called Longdan Army Camp. The leader's name is Lin Muyu. Could it be you?" "Ah, Brother Feng's news is quite fast." "Nonsense, I'm the commander of the Imperial Guard. I know everything that happens in the Imperial capital. Tell me, why did you create this Longdan Army Camp?" "I need my own power." Lin Muyu clenched her fist and said with a cold look in her eyes, "I still remember how Zheng Yifan aggressively led the Divine Might Battalion to attack the Holy Temple. If I had a strong army, why would I be afraid of Zheng Yifan? Brother Feng, to be honest, I have doubts about the Imperial Army's combat power. If this continues, are we going to rely solely on the Imperial Guard to protect Lanyan City and Shaoyin?" Feng Jixing was stunned. He was silent for a few seconds and said, "I only have one question for you. Did you create the Longdan Army Camp for the throne or for Shaoyin?" Feng Jixing was very straightforward. Lin Muyu was also stunned and said without hesitation, I've never coveted the throne and I have no interest in it. I created the Longdan army camp because I'm worried that our current power can't protect everything that's good now. I created the Longdan army camp in the hope that one day I can rely on my own power to protect the people I care about. Ha, I see, Feng Jixing sighed and said with a smile, that's good. Brother Feng, you don't have to worry too much. Since the Longdan army camp is a brother legion of the Imperial Guard, I will definitely close one eye to the existence of the Longdan army camp. It's up to you to build the Longdan army camp to be strong. Lin Muyu nodded and asked, Brother Feng, you scared me just now. Do you think I'm the kind of person who wants to fight for the throne? You don't look like it. Feng Jixing took a deep look at him with a playful look in his eyes and said with a smile, but if you really want to fight for the throne, you will be the most terrible enemy of the Qin Empire because you have both civil and military skills. Lin Muyu couldn't help but gasp. I. Feng Jixing laughed and patted him on the shoulder intimately, saying, Silly boy, you are my brother. Feng Jixing will never hurt you and will never be afraid of you. Come on, drink this wine and go back to sleep early. To be honest, I'm looking forward to what kind of powerful existence your Longdan army camp will eventually become. Maybe, as you said, the military system of the Qin Empire has been fixed for too long and has lost the combat power that it should have. Even the Imperial Guard is not as good as before. We really need some fresh blood. Lin Muyu raised his head and drank a mouthful of strong wine. The spicy taste almost made him cry. Lin Muyu wiped his mouth and looked at the stars in the sky. He was thinking that if there were really Emperor stars and General stars among the stars in the sky, then where was the one that belonged to him? Was it the Emperor star or the General star? Perhaps he had never thought about becoming an emperor. But if he didn't become an emperor, could he change all the injustice and barbarism of the shattered cauldron world with his own strength? It was difficult. The world was so difficult, but he had to try. Forget it, he should go back to Lanyan City tomorrow to check on the situation of the Longdan army camp. He didn't know how many people Luo Yu had recruited. Anyway, he had already taken this mountain from Feng Jixing. It would be a good base for the Longdan army camp in the future. This mountain didn't even have a name, but it was very wide. The barracks had been built and could accommodate tens of thousands of troops. It was the best choice for the Longdan army camp. Feng Jixing was lying on a huge rock, seemingly drunk as he looked at the sky with a pair of drowsy eyes. He tilted his head to look at Lin Muyu and Chu Huayin and couldn't help but smile. When he looked at the sky again, a shooting star streaked across the sky. He was slightly stunned and his eyes seemed to become more serious. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.